Large meal was being served. The humans were trying their best to appear composed, while the aliens remained silent, observing everything with keen interest. Zarathel, the leader, was the focal point of attention. Her gaze never wavered as she studied each person around the table, making everyone feel like they were being weighed and measured. Alex, sensing the growing discomfort among his team, leaned over to a fellow diplomat, smirking as he whispered, "I've got a great idea for breaking the ice with her." His colleague raised an eyebrow. "What's that?"
"You'll see," Alex chuckled, then stood up, raising his glass.
The room fell silent, all eyes on him. With a grin, Alex looked toward Zarathel and addressed the group. "Well, it's been an honor to host all of you here. The human race has worked hard to make this partnership a success. I think it's time we solidify things in a way only we know how." He paused, then added with a playful tone, "How about we get married? I'll marry Zarathel, and we'll call it the ultimate symbol of human-alien unity." The room erupted into laughter. It was meant to be a joke, a light-hearted attempt to ease the growing tension between the two species. Even Alex's colleague chuckled, shaking his head at the absurdity of the idea. Everyone assumed it was just a joke, a foolish, over-the-top suggestion from the commander to bring a little humor to the night. However, the moment Alex finished speaking, the laughter slowly began to die down. He looked up, realizing something was wrong. Zarnethel wasn't laughing. Instead, her piercing gaze was fixed on him, her expression unreadable. The laughter from the humans continued, unaware of the shift in the air. Then, in the midst of the laughter, Zarathel spoke, her voice calm and measured, carrying a weight that made the room fall into complete silence. "I accept," she said, her words cutting through the laughter like a blade. Alex froze. His glass, still held in his hand, began to feel heavier. The silence in the room was suffocating, everyone staring at Zarathel, then at Alex, and then back at her. It was as if the world had paused. You accept?" Alex stammered, not sure if he had heard her correctly. Zarathel nodded slowly. "Yes."
"I accept the proposal. We will marry." The shock hit Alex like a freight train.
His mind raced as he tried to process what had just happened. Was she serious? It was impossible. They were supposed to be negotiating for peace, not making deals like this. But Zarathel stood unwavering, her expression as calm and composed as ever. The room was dead silent, every eye fixed on the two of them. Alex's colleague standing beside him finally broke the silence. "This is a joke, right?" he asked, his voice uncertain, hoping for confirmation that this was just another one of Alex's pranks. But Zarathel only looked at him, her gaze cool and unfazed.
"I do not joke," she replied.
"I am serious about this alliance." Alex's mind whirled. He hadn't expected this, not in a million years.
The situation was quickly slipping out of control, and now he found himself in the midst of something he had never even considered. The alien woman. This imposing figure of power and mystery had just agreed to a marriage proposal that had started as nothing more than a jest. I didn't mean," Alex started, his voice shaking.
"I didn't think you'd actually—" "It is an acceptable proposal," Zarathel interrupted, her voice firm. "Your people offer a symbol of unity."
"I accept." The room was still in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Alex, however, felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. He glanced around, his mind racing to find some way to back out of the situation, but it was already too late. Zaratel's acceptance had already set the wheels in motion, and no amount of explanation or backpedaling could undo it now. For a moment, Alex didn't know what to say. He looked at Zaratel, trying to understand her, trying to read her, but her face remained inscrutable. Was she playing a game? Was this some kind of test? Or was she serious? He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "I'm not sure this is how things work. Between us."
"I didn't expect you to accept it."
Zarathel met his gaze. Amore, don't be matched. It is the way things work where I come from. Marriages are not just symbols of personal unions. They are political alliances. This will strengthen both our people. You are human, but you are also a commander.
You are worth more than you realize.
This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about something much bigger. He had no idea what Zarathel's true intentions were, but this was a power move, something that went far beyond anything he had anticipated. His joke had opened a door he wasn't sure he was ready to walk through. As the night wore on, the laughter and conversation slowly returned. But Alex felt a growing tension. Zarentel's acceptance had changed everything. The room that had once felt like a place of warmth and celebration now seemed like a battlefield, and Alex was trapped in the center of it. He couldn't help but wonder, had this truly been a joke, or had Zarathel been waiting for him to make this very offer? And what would it mean for the future of both their peoples? The answers, he knew, were far more complicated than he could ever have imagined. Alex sat alone in his quarters, the door shut behind him, as he tried to process what had just happened. His mind was a storm of confusion and disbelief.
Zaratel's unexpected acceptance of his joke had thrown him off balance.
What had started as a harmless comment had turned into something far more complicated. He ran a hand through his hair, staring at the desk in front of him, as the reality of the situation set in. Was she playing some kind of game? Had she misinterpreted his words? It felt impossible, but the way she had spoken, with such calm authority, made it clear that this wasn't just a misunderstanding. She had accepted, and now the weight of that decision lay on his shoulders. Alex had faced numerous challenges in his career. Alien threats, hostile environments, political tensions. But this was different. The entire mission to the planet was already a delicate one. And now, with Zarathel's declaration, everything was hanging by a thread. He had been joking when he proposed the marriage. Everyone knew it. It was a common tactic among the diplomatic team, to use humor to ease tense moments. The idea of marrying an alien woman, especially someone as powerful and mysterious as Zaratel, was absurd. Yet here they were, in a situation that seemed to defy all logic. After what felt like an eternity, Alex decided he couldn't sit idly by. He needed to understand what had just happened. There were still many unknowns, but one thing was clear. Zarahatal wasn't joking. She wasn't like anyone he had ever met. The following morning, Alex made his way to the main hall where the alien delegation was staying. The atmosphere was far more formal than it had been the night before. Gone were the relaxed smiles and laughter, replaced by quiet conversations in the corner. The aliens were talking amongst themselves in their own language, their voices low and calm. Zaratel stood in the center of the room, as always, her presence commanding attention. Her sharp eyes met Alex's as he walked in, and a wave of unease washed over him. There was something intimidating about her, but it wasn't just her physical stature. It was the confidence she exuded, a kind of quiet power that made everyone around her seem small. She wasn't just a leader, she was a force. And Alex was in the center of it now. "Commander Monroe," Zaratel greeted him, her voice as calm and composed as ever. "I trust you've had time to think about our discussion." Alex hesitated for a moment, unsure how to respond. "I've thought about little else," he said, trying to keep his voice steady.
I didn't expect you to take my words seriously.
Zaratel's eyes narrowed slightly, but her expression didn't change. "I do not take matters of this magnitude lightly. When I made my decision, I did so with full awareness of what it means." Her words stung more than he cared to admit. She had accepted without hesitation, but now she was speaking as if the whole thing was a calculated decision. There was no room for humor in this conversation, no room for him to back out. Alex knew he had to face the reality of the situation. "I never intended for this to happen," Alex said, his voice a little firmer now. "It was a joke, Zarathel, a diplomatic attempt to break the ice. And yet, You suggested it, and I accepted, she replied, her tone unchanging. I do not jest when it comes to the future of my people. This union will help us. I believe it will benefit both our species. Alex opened his mouth to protest, but he found no words. What could he say? She was right. This wasn't just a joke. Not anymore. I need to understand something, Alex said, his voice quieter now. Why me? Why choose this path? You could have asked for any kind of alliance, but you chose marriage. Zaratail's gaze never left his. It is the strongest bond I could offer.
Where I come from, marriages are not just personal unions. They are political.
They are symbols of power and commitment. By forming this bond with you, I unite two very different worlds.
And together, we will stand against those who threaten us.
Alex's mind raced as her words sunk in. She was using him, but not in the way he had initially thought. This wasn't a game. This was real, and it was about something far bigger than either of them.
Who exactly are we standing against? Alex asked, his curiosity piqued.
Zarathel's face remained expressionless, but there was a flicker of something. Anger, perhaps, behind her eyes. There are factions within my people who are pushing for war.
They want to dominate the galaxy, to control every system they can. They believe in strength, in power,
but they do not understand the value of unity. Our union will show them that we can work together for something greater. Alex didn't know what to say. The weight of her words hung in the air between them. He had thought this was about something personal, something fleeting. But it wasn't. It was about power, strategy, and survival. So, you're using me to stop a war? Alex asked, trying to wrap his head around the situation.
To create an alliance?
Zaratel nodded slowly. Yes, but it is not just about politics. It is about the future of my people. And now, it is also about the future of yours. Alex felt a heavy knot in his stomach. He had known from the moment Zarathel accepted his joke that this wasn't going to be an easy path. But he hadn't expected it to be this complicated. She was right. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and alliances, no matter how strange, were necessary to survive. I need time, Alex said finally, his voice thick with the weight of the decision he had to make. Time to think about what this means for both of us. Zaratel gave a slight nod. Take as much time as you need, Commander. The decision is not just yours.
It will affect us all. But know this. I am prepared for what comes next.
Are you? Alex didn't answer her right away. He wasn't sure if he was prepared for anything. But he knew one thing. He was already in too deep to turn back now. The day passed slowly for Alex, as he continued to process the weight of the decision that had been thrust upon him. He spent hours reading through reports, meeting with his team, and trying to distract himself from the reality of his situation. But the thoughts kept coming back. Zaratel's calm acceptance, her cold logic, her fierce dedication to her people. It was all too much to ignore. His mind wandered back to the night of the dinner. He had been so sure that he was just making a joke. But Zarathel had accepted, and now the consequences of that decision were unfolding in ways he hadn't even imagined. It was then that he realized something else. Zarathel wasn't just a leader of her people. She was a woman with deep convictions, someone who had chosen a path of strength and sacrifice, and whether he liked it or not, he was now a part of that path. As the hours stretched on, Alex found himself standing at the window, gazing out at the distant horizon of the planet. It was a beautiful sight, but it also felt like a prison. He had been given a choice, but it didn't feel like one anymore. His future, his people's future, was now intertwined with Zaratel's, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger story. Dion wasn't about personal desires. It was a political strategy, a necessary step to form an alliance that would shake the foundation of the galaxy's power structure. Alex had known that his role in the colony's mission was critical, but now it felt like he was a pawn in a much larger game. One that involved not only Earth, but an entire alien species with their own goals and ambitions. His usual confidence, the sharp edge that had always helped him navigate difficult situations, felt dulled by the complexity of this new reality. He hadn't signed up for this. He hadn't even known this was a possibility when he had first taken the position of commander. His thoughts were a constant swirl, trying to make sense of Zarathel's motives and what he was supposed to do next. The room was silent as Alex sat in the command center, surrounded by his team. They were reviewing the latest intelligence reports on the alien factions Zaratel had spoken of. Some of the factions wanted peace, but others wanted war, eager to seize control and expand their influence. The tension in the galaxy was palpable, and the human presence on this distant world was now a key piece in the larger puzzle. "You're not alone in this, Commander," Lieutenant Harris said, his voice breaking the silence. "We all knew this was going to be difficult, but I don't think anyone could have expected this." Alex nodded, but his thoughts remained distant. He had heard the words before, but they didn't bring him any comfort. He had always been the one who could make the tough decisions, the one who stayed calm when others faltered. But now, with everything that had happened, he wasn't so sure. "I know," Alex replied quietly. "But this isn't just about us anymore. It's about the future of both our species."
The team shifted uncomfortably at his words.
No one had expected such a dramatic turn in their mission. The proposal, a joke that had become reality, had thrown everything into uncertainty. Alex could see the doubt in their eyes, and for the first time, he wondered if they were looking to him for answers. Answers he didn't have. The following days were filled with preparations for what was now being called the Union Ceremony. It was a formal event, one that would be attended by representatives from both the human and alien delegations. It was meant to symbolize the alliance that had been forged between the two species, a powerful gesture that would be watched closely by every faction in the galaxy. But for Alex, the ceremony was nothing more than a looming reminder of how far things had gone. Zarathel had made it clear that their union wasn't just symbolic. It was a political move, one that would help unite the human colonies and her people against the growing threat of war. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Zarathel's actions than she had let on. Her decision to accept the proposal was far too calculated. There was something in her eyes when she looked at him, something that made him wonder if there was more to their bond than just politics. But what that something was, he couldn't quite put his finger on. The day of the ceremony arrived, and the atmosphere in the command center was tense. Alex stood in front of a mirror, adjusting his uniform one last time. His reflection stared back at him, a man caught between two worlds. One was his duty to Earth and the mission. The other was the unexpected bond that had formed between him and Zarathel. It was a bond that had begun as a joke, but had quickly turned into something much larger, something he wasn't sure he was ready for. He had read the reports, studied the history of Zarathel's people. He knew their customs, their traditions, their politics. But none of that had prepared him for this moment. He was about to marry an alien woman. Not out of love, but out of necessity. The weight of the decision felt unbearable. The ceremony hall was grand, a blend of human and alien design. The room was dimly lit, with soft flickering lights casting shadows on the walls. The alien delegation stood on one side of the room, while the human team gathered on the other. At the center, a ceremonial platform had been set up, where Alex and Zarathel would stand and exchange vows. The air was thick with anticipation. Zarathel stood at the front of the room, her imposing presence filling the space. She was dressed in an elegant gown made of shimmering material, a stark contrast to the more simple uniforms of the human delegates. Her eyes met Alex's as he walked into the room, and for the briefest moment, he saw something in her gaze, something that made his heart skip a beat. Was it compassion? Or was it something more? Alex walked up to her, his steps measured and deliberate. The room seemed to fade away as he stood before her. This was real now, There was no turning back. The ceremony began, and they both recited the vows of unity, but Alex's mind wasn't fully in it. His heart was heavy with the uncertainty of what came next. Zarathel's voice was steady as she spoke, her words clear and strong. I pledge my people's strength, my trust, and my commitment to this alliance. Together, we will forge a new future. Alex's voice faltered slightly, but he continued. I pledge to uphold the trust of the human race, to stand with you and fight for the future of both our species. It felt like an eternity, standing there in front of her, but the moment passed quickly. The union was official, but in that moment, something shifted between them. Alex couldn't explain it. There was no magic, no grand emotional exchange, but something had changed. They had committed to this alliance, to this bond, and for better or worse, they were now bound together. The ceremony ended, and the room erupted in applause. But Alex barely noticed. His mind was still reeling from the events of the day, trying to comprehend the path that lay ahead. He had made a choice, hadn't he? But now he wasn't so sure. As the guests began to disperse, Zarathel approached him. Her expression was unreadable, but her presence was as commanding as ever. We have done what needed to be done, she said softly. Now we must face what comes next. Alex nodded, his mind still struggling to keep up.
I don't know what comes next, Zarathel.
But I'm in this, now. We both are. She nodded, her gaze intense. Together, we will face whatever the future holds, and together we will ensure that neither of our peoples falls. Alex met her gaze, and for the first time, he saw something different in her eyes. It wasn't just strength, it was resolve. And maybe, just maybe, it was trust. But the future was still uncertain. And whatever came next, Alex knew he wouldn't face it alone. Days passed in a blur of formal meetings and intense discussions. The union between Alex and Zaratel had become a matter of constant attention, not just for the two of them, but for everyone around them. The human and alien delegations were watching closely, and the eyes of the galaxy seemed to be on them. No one could deny that the bond between the two species had just become something real, something that could change the course of history. Alex had thought that the ceremony would be the end of it, that once they exchanged their vows, the pressure would lift. But it wasn't over. In many ways, it had only just begun. Now, the real challenges lay ahead. Alex spent most of his days in strategy meetings with his team, trying to navigate the political landscape that had shifted so unexpectedly. Zarathel remained a constant presence, her calm and composed demeanor never wavering. But Alex had learned something in the days after the ceremony. There was more to Zarathel than he had first realized. She was not just a leader or a figurehead. She was a person with a mission, a purpose, and a vision for her people. And that mission was now intertwined with his own. The two of them had spent little time together since the ceremony. There had been meetings, of course, discussions about the future of the galaxy, about the growing threats from factions within Zaratel's people, but nothing that allowed for personal conversation. Alex found himself wondering if Zarathel saw him as nothing more than a tool to achieve her goals, or if there was something more beneath the surface. It was hard to say. She was always guarded, always focused on the task at hand. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of diplomatic negotiations, Alex found himself alone in his quarters. The quiet of the room was a welcome relief from the constant hum of activity. He sank into the chair by the window, staring out at the alien landscape. The sky was dark, the stars distant and unfamiliar, and the planet stretched out below him, vast and silent. It reminded him of how small and insignificant he sometimes felt in the grand scheme of things. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. "Commander," came Zaratel's voice, calm and unbothered. "May I speak with you?" Alex hesitated for a moment, before standing up. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he knew that avoiding the conversation wouldn't solve anything. He opened the door, and there she stood, tall, composed, her presence filling the room. "Of course," Alex said, stepping aside to let her in. Zarathel entered without hesitation, her eyes scanning the room briefly before settling on Alex. There was a moment of silence between them, a tension that neither of them spoke aloud, but both felt. Finally, Zarathel broke the silence. "We need to discuss the next steps," she said, her voice as steady as ever. Alex nodded. "What do you have in mind?" Zarathel walked to the table and sat down, her movements deliberate. "The factions within my people will not simply accept this union. It is not just a symbolic gesture for them. They see it as a weakness, a threat to their control. Some of them believe that by forming this alliance, we are inviting others to challenge their authority." Alex frowned, trying to process her words. "So they'll try to undermine us?" "They already have," Zarathel said, her tone unwavering.
There are whispers, rumors, being spread. Some are even questioning whether my judgment has been clouded by emotion.
"It is critical that we stand firm, not just in our alliance, but in our resolve. If we allow them to see any cracks in our unity, they will exploit it."
Alex felt a knot tighten in his chest.
This was more than just politics now. This was about survival. Zarthel's people weren't just divided. They were on the brink of war, and their enemies were watching, waiting for any sign of weakness. If they saw a rift between Zaratel and the human delegation, they would exploit it for all it was worth. "What can we do to stop them?" Alex asked, his voice low with concern.
"We need to show them that our bond is unbreakable," Zarathel replied. "We need to make a public display of our unity, to demonstrate that the union between our species is not just a political alliance, but a personal one as well."
Alex was silent for a moment, considering her words. "You mean,
"Yes,"
Zarathel interrupted. "We will make our partnership known to the world, to every faction, and to every corner of the galaxy. We will stand together, not just as allies, but as a symbol of strength."
Alex didn't know what to say. He had agreed to this alliance out of duty, out of a sense of responsibility to his people. But now Zarathal was asking him to make it personal, to make it real in a way he wasn't sure he was ready for.
I have never done anything like this before, he admitted. I've led people through battles, through crises. But this, it's different.
"This feels like something else?" Zaratel studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. "I understand. It is not easy to trust someone in this way.
But we have no choice. If we are to survive, we must stand together.
We must show our people that our bond is stronger than the divisions that threaten us." Alex looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since their wedding. Zaratel was a leader, a force of nature, but she was also a person who carried the weight of her people's future on her shoulders. Her strength, her conviction, it was all directed toward one goal: survival. But it wasn't just about her people anymore. It was about both their people and whether they could build something real together.
"What happens if we fail?" Alex asked quietly.
"If we fail, then the galaxy will fall into chaos," Zarathel replied, her voice unwavering. "We will be the last line of defense, but I believe we will not fail. Together, we can change the future." Alex took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. She wasn't asking for a political alliance anymore. She was asking for his commitment, his trust, and in turn, she was offering the same. It was terrifying, but it was also liberating. The future was uncertain, but at least they were facing it together.
"I'll stand with you," Alex said finally.
"For Earth. For your people." For both of us. Zaratel's gaze softened ever so slightly. "Thank you, Commander." The moment lingered, and for the first time since the ceremony, Alex felt something shift between them. It wasn't love. Not yet, anyway. But it was respect, and perhaps, in time, something more. As they stood in the room together, the silence between them was not uncomfortable. It was a mutual understanding, a shared resolve. They weren't just playing the roles that had been assigned to them. They were partners in a struggle that was much bigger than either of them. The future of both their species was at stake, and they would face it side by side. For better or for worse, Alex knew that this was only the beginning. The challenges they would face ahead would test them in ways they could not yet imagine. But, in that moment, standing together in the quiet of his quarters, Alex made a silent vow to himself and to Zarathel. Whatever came next, he would stand by her, and he would fight for their future.